everyone, it's Sam aka Ocean Unknown and welcome back to my channel. So, as many of you know, I am a theater tech and design major in college, which I totally don't make my entire personality on here. But another thing that's a major part of my life is Pokemon. I've made Pokemon fashion videos, a video explaining my team if I was a Pokemon champion, and character analysis videos of Pokemon characters. But other than my theatrical lens videos, there's no way that theater and Pokemon can mix, right? Oh wait, there is! This video is about the time Pokemon made a musical, Pokemon Live. Pokemon Live was a musical stage show that toured the United States from September 15th, 2000 to January 28th, 2001. Approximately 90 minutes in duration, Pokemon Live was based on the Pokemon anime series, specifically the Indigo League season, using the same characters, costumes, and story elements. The music in the production included songs from the previously released soundtracks from the Pokemon anime, Pokemon to Be a Master, and Totally Pokemon, as well as original songs. The story follows Ash Ketchum, Misty, and Brock as they travel to a contest to win the incredibly sought-after Diamond Badge. The contest turns out to be a massive scam created by the evil Team Rocket and their leader Giovanni as a part of their plan to take over the world. After the US tour ended, multiple performances in the UK in 2002 were planned, but were later cancelled. They were invited to perform in Dubai in March 2001 as part of the Dubai Shopping Festival, and many different adaptations, including ones in Portuguese and Dutch, were made and performed in March and April respectively in 2002. In the 90s, Broadway was in a flourishing era that all started with Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. Cats became a massive phenomenon and became the longest-running show on Broadway, with that record being taken over by the Phantom of the Opera, the 1996 revival of Chicago, and The Lion King. Out of these, the impact of The Lion King on Broadway was the biggest. To this day, The Lion King is the highest-grossing stage work of all time. It brought attention to theater in a whole new way and brought in whole families who were never the intended audience of Broadway shows at the time. Disney's place in Broadway and the world of theater with The Lion King and their first Broadway adaptation, Beauty and the Beast, caused the emergence of the corporate musical. As a corporation, Disney now had total control of what was popular on Broadway. Then, in September 1998, the Pokemon anime started airing in English on TV, as well as Pokemon Red and Blue on the Nintendo Game Boy being released on September 28, 1998 in America. The Pokemon marketing team was pushing for everything you can imagine to have Pokemon on it. Plushies, the trading card game, a card that gives out free stuff, even soups. Even with all of this marketing and merchandise, the Pokemon marketing team had yet to touch one of the most influential products, music. By collaborating with Rave Music, Pokemon had its theme song, an outro aka the Poke-Rap, and other songs to create the album Pokemon to Be a Master. To Be a Master mostly had ballads, but also featured the more upbeat Viridian City and a villainous bop in Double Trouble. The album was a hit, going gold in the United States. After the album, Pokemon released its first movie on November 6, 1999, amply named Pokemon the First Movie, which counts as its first dip into the pool of theatrics for the brand. Like To Be a Master, Pokemon the First Movie was a complete success, becoming the highest-grossing video game film, animated film based on a TV show, and anime film at the time of its release. With Pokemon becoming a global phenomenon added with the rising success of the family-friendly Broadway shows and theatrical adaptations of animated films, Pokemon decided the next step was to take Pokemon to the stage, and they set their sights on Radio City Music Hall in New York City. And thus, the concept of Pokemon Live was born. The CEO of 4Kids Entertainment, Norman Grossman, became the executive producer of the show. The plan was for Pokemon Live to be an all-ages show mostly geared towards kids, but anyone could enjoy the show. All that they needed left in this starting process was a writer. There wasn't as much creative freedom to begin with since this was a corporate musical. Everything had to be approved by multiple people and companies, including 4Kids Entertainment and Nintendo. And then, Michael Slade entered the picture. Slade was an established television writer, children's author, and playwright who specialized in family-friendly productions, including musical adaptations of Goldilocks and the Three Bears and Peter Rabbit. 4Kids Entertainment wanted to find a production company as fast as they could, and Slade got recommended to them due to his past work. Slade entered the project without even knowing exactly what the musical was. All he was asked was if he was interested in working on a secret musical at Radio City Music Hall. He took the job and did his research by watching the VHS of Pokemon the First movie a couple of times. During this time, they also found the director and choreographer of the show, Louis Perez. Louis Perez was a principal dancer of the Joffrey Ballet, as well as the choreographer for many Broadway shows. Quickly afterwards, the creative team and crew were filled up with John Leufer and John Siegler, two men who have written songs for the anime, becoming the musical directors, as well as establishing the crews for lighting, set, costume, and puppetry. With the production crew all set, it was now time for rehearsals to start in April of 2000, less than 6 months before the show opened in Radio City Music Hall in September of the same year. With this down-to-the-wire scheduling, working on tech was on the top of the priorities before Slade even had a script ready. Slade was told to have a rough draft of the script done in a week, which is an incredibly short frame of time to write an entire musical script. Then came the technical decisions, and there had to be many since this was not only a Radio City Music Hall show, but also a national tour. Perez and Slade understood what could and couldn't be done with their budget on tour and followed accordingly. This was also where the tour locations were decided, and most of the theaters were arenas, which made Radio City Music Hall the smallest location they performed in at 6,000 seats. After this, the cast was found. Most of the cast were up-and-coming actors at the time, or were people scouted from 4Kids Entertainment. Moving on to our main cast, Ash Ketchum was played by Dominic Nolfi, who went on to be in Jersey Boys as a swing and understudy for many characters for multiple months in 2005, 2007, and 2011. He also went on to star in Motown the Musical in 2013 as Barney Ailes, and A Bronx Tale the Musical in 2016. Misty was played by Heidi Wellmuller, who fun fact sings the theme song for the movie Pokemon Heroes. Not much is found about her and what she's been up to recently on the internet, but in 2016 she made her solo cabaret debut at the Laurie Beachman Theater. Brock was played by Dennis Kenny, who went on to perform the role of Eddie in the Las Vegas company's production of Mamma Mia, as well as starring in the 40th anniversary revival show of MAME in 2006. The leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni, was played by Darren Dunstan. Darren is a Canadian voice actor who is working as a voice actor for 4Kids. His voice has been in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Pokemon. Ash's mom was played by Dee Rocholi, who has gone on to have a large resume of shows. Some of her roles include Grisabella the Glamour Cat in Cats from 2002 to 2003, Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors in 2005, Bruma Sarah in the 2015 Broadway revival of Fiddler on the Roof, and Elphaba in Wicked in 2006. As Elphaba, she made her Broadway debut on July 21, 2009, and also toured the United States in 2011, holding the distinction of having played Elphaba in more performances in various North American productions than any other actress. Professor Oak was played by Patrick Frankfort, who doesn't have too much about him on the internet either. All of the Pokemon characters had two actors, costume performers, and voice actors. Pikachu's costume performer was Jennifer Rizzer, who I could not find any concrete information on, and the voice actor was Ikue Otani, who voices Pikachu in the Pokemon anime. Otani's voice has been in One Piece, Naruto, Cookie Run Kingdom, and the Japanese dub of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Meowth's costume performer was Catherine Roach, who also didn't have much information about her on the internet. Meowth's voice was done by Maddie Ballstein, who also voiced Meowth in the Pokemon anime. Maddie Ballstein was the first intersex and transgender voice artist for many of her respective agencies, and has had such an incredible impact on voice acting and cartoons as a whole. Thank you, Maddie, for everything. Psyduck's costume performer was Leah Smith, who is also Jigglypuff's costume performer in the show. I couldn't find too much on her either other than her Twitter account. Psyduck's voice actor was Michael Hagney, who is a voice acting regular for the Pokemon anime, including Ash's Primate, Metapod and Charmander, Missy's Psyduck, Brock's Geodude, and Jesse's Lickitung. He's also done Pokemon voice acting in other video games such as Super Smash Bros. And Pokemon Snap. Jigglypuff was voiced by Rachel Lillis, who was one of the original voice actors of the Pokemon anime. Lillis voiced Misty, Jessie, the reoccurring Jigglypuff, Brock's Vulpix, and Duplica's Ditto in the anime. She has continued to be a voice actor mostly in anime dubs, including Hunter x Hunter, Your Lie in April, and Berserk. Last of the Pokemon characters is Mewtwo, whose costume performer was Martin Fulop, who also doesn't have a lot of information on the internet. Mewtwo's voice actor was Jay Goad, who also voiced Mewtwo in Pokemon the First movie. Goad has also had a fair share of Broadway roles, being in Angels in America in 1993, Sex and Longing with Sigourney Weaver in 1995, and the 1999 national tour of Cabaret. Back to the human characters, Nurse Joy was played by Natalie Wells, who as of now has been in many films, off-Broadway productions, and regional theater productions including A Chorus Line, Jesus Christ Superstar, and Hair. Officer Jenny was played by Suzanne Wajesh, who went on to play Volta in Starlit Express in 2003 and 2004 in the U.S. national tour. Dexter, who is the Pokedex, was voiced by Sinclair Mitchell. Mitchell has been in some incredible Broadway shows such as The Lion King and School of Rock, and played Mr. Hawkins in the 2021 national tour of The Prom. Lastly is the Team Rocket duo, Jesse and James. Jesse was played by Lauren Kling, who since Pokemon Live voice acted in the 2001 TV show Cubics Robots for Everyone. James was played by probably the most notable member of the cast, Andrew Rannells. If you're familiar with some of the most recent Broadway shows, you've probably heard of Rannells before. Some of his well-known roles are Elder Price in the original cast of The Book of Mormon, which he got nominated for a Tony and won a Grammy for Best Musical Theater Album for, Link Larkin in Hairspray, and Whizzer in the 2016 revival of Falsettos. He has also done voice acting for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon as Harley and the gym leader Morty. In 2019, Andrew Rannells wrote in his book Too Much Is Not Enough in a chapter titled I Don't Want to Catch 'Em All that he had a lot of negative feelings about the show. He also mentioned his audition process with the show and how he got a call back for Ash and James. He watched an episode of the Pokemon anime after getting the call back and expressed that he didn't want to play the flamboyant James. As a gay man, he said that James was compiled of gay stereotypes. At the callbacks, they asked him if he watched the show. After saying yes, they told him to act more like James in the show, which basically meant playing up all of the gay stereotypes Rannells was hurt by. When asked about his experience in Pokemon Live in 2014, he jokingly said that he would have rather starred in a porn film instead and that he only took the job for pay. I would like to add here that all of this was in the early 2000s when being a part of the LGBTQ+ community wasn't as accepted. And since then, the queer community has reclaimed Jesse and James as the quote-unquote queer working class heroes that Pokemon needs. And as a queer individual myself, Team Rocket helped me understand that I was not straight, and that it was okay to be my authentic and sometimes campy self. After the cast got the roles, the script was finalized and finished, and official rehearsals began. This mostly consisted of blocking and choreography, as well as working with the, at the time, unfinished Pokemon puppets made by Yvette Helene, who also worked on The Lion King on Broadway. At the same time, musical direction was in full steam. However, you can't just write a musical with more than 20 songs in a couple of months. So the musical directors decided that the majority of the songs would be pre-release songs from the aforementioned album To Be a Master. Also, during the rehearsals for Pokemon Live, another Pokemon studio album was in the works called Totally Pokemon, and some of these songs were in the show as well before the album was released on January 23, 2001, these being You and Me and Pokemon and Two Perfect Girls. There were 4 original songs made specifically for the musical, those being It Will All Be Mine, The Best at Being the Worst, I've Got a Secret, and You Just Can't Win. When I discuss the songs, I will discuss these further. There was a small issue with the non-original songs, however. None of them were really plot-driven or made sense in a full storyline. Despite this, the musical directors casted the worries aside since their intended kid audience would know most of these songs and assumed that they would care more about the fun, upbeat music than the overall story of the musical. With a full set of songs, an established script, and full cast, rehearsals went underway. The cast continued to work with Helene's puppets that were more developed and functional than before. This is when the blocking, characterization, and chemistry of the actors began to form. Since they were all playing cartoon characters, and this was an entertainment show for children, the acting had to be theatrical, over the top, and campy. In the rehearsal footage, this is very evident, especially with Team Rocket. I expected the campy acting, but trust me, nothing prepared me to see blonde Andrew Rannells shaking his ass on a scooter. Also, during some rehearsals, they brought in kids to see the reactions, almost like a kids' focus group. The stage design, set, costumes, puppets, and wigs were all coming together at this point. As everything was pretty much done for the show, they did tryouts with audiences to fix anything last minute and to perform in front of an audience before Radio City Music Hall and the tour. Pokemon Live's tryout was in Albany, New York at the MVP Arena, just 5 days before their first official performance. There was a minor concern about this location for the tryouts, which was that Albany was one of the only places in the country that didn't broadcast the Pokemon anime on TV, so they were worried about children and families not having interest. The tryout happened, and Pokemon Live was set to premiere at Radio City music hall. The only thing cut from the tryout was a Pokemon puppet, presumably a Lapras puppet that was apparently supposed to blow bubbles on stage based on post-show interviews that was too big for the set. Finally, after the few months spent on this, millions of dollars spent, Pokemon Live debuted on September 20th, 2000. The story begins with the Pokemon Orange Island's theme song shown via a large projector screen on the stage and the bordering screens meant to look like Pokedexes. The song is interrupted with a shadowed Giovanni releasing a commercial challenging all Pokemon trainers to win the one-of-a-kind Diamond Badge in a contest. In order to win the badge, they must defeat him and his Pokemon in a Pokemon battle. He says to go to www.diamondbadge.com to find the location of the Diamond Badge. The stage shifts, and the scene is now Ash Ketchum's bedroom. He is woken up by his mother, Delia, and Professor Oak, who tell him they're late for a Pokemon lecture from a Pokemon expert about sleep disorders among Snorlax. Ash doesn't want to go, so Delia and Oak let him go off on one of his Pokemon adventures. Also, something I haven't mentioned yet is the chemistry between Delia and Professor Oak. For those of you who don't know, it's a common trope in Pokemon for the main character to not have a father. This applies to Ash as well, and it's said in this musical that Oak and Delia are dating. However, we don't know Ash's birth father, or do we? Ash says he's got to be ready to take on Team Rocket, and Delia negatively reacts to this, implying that she knows a lot about Team Rocket. The musical part of this musical starts with Ash dancing around his room in his boxers to the original Pokemon theme song before being interrupted by Misty and Brock. Ash tells them he's going on a journey after the Diamond Badge, and he wants them to come with him. Misty chastises him for not taking her to the movies on her birthday, which he promised 3 weeks ago. He promises to make it up to her somehow, but also mentions how Pokemon are his friends too. This leads into the first song, You and Me and Pokemon, where Ash and Misty and Brock sing of journeys, dreams, and friends. The song is accompanied by a dance break and all of the Pokemon puppets coming on stage. The song concludes as Ash, Misty, and Brock head off on their journey to get the Diamond Badge. The next scene starts with Jessie, James, and Meowth doing the Team Rocket motto and also doing a bit of crowd work. Them talking to the crowd is interrupted by a phone call from Giovanni ordering them to arrive at the Team Rocket HQ. At the Team Rocket headquarters, Giovanni emerges from the shadows and sings the first original song, an absolute bop in the show, It Will All Be Mine, along with an ensemble of Team Rocket grunts dancing. Giovanni sings of his plan to create a mechanical marvel using Ash's Pikachu and to have world domination. When Jessie, James, and Meowth arrive, Giovanni gloats and reveals what this mechanical marvel is. His creation is Mecha Mewtwo, a giant robotic version of the Pokemon Mewtwo, which is designed to learn every single Pokemon attack. Giovanni's plan was that when trainers challenge him for the Diamond Badge, Mecha Mewtwo will learn all of that trainer's Pokemon's attacks and will soon become unstoppable. We see Giovanni battle 2 trainers, one with an Alakazam and one with an Electrode. Both are defeated by Giovanni and Mecha Mewtwo as Giovanni and the Grunts sing a reprise of It Will All Be Mine. In the next scene, Ash, Misty, and Brock are traveling through the forest. Brock tries to hit on female trainers, and he ultimately gets turned down. Misty is upset that Ash's attention is more on his Pokemon than her. Another quick thing, Misty's portrayal in this musical is very different from the anime. Misty didn't really have a crush on Ash in the anime, but in this, it's very apparent that Misty likes Ash and wishes he'd spend more time with her. Ash then sings a song about friendship, My Best Friends. Meanwhile, Jessie, James, and Meowth dig a pitfall trap for Ash and his friends to fall into, but Ash, Misty, and Brock walk right over it without the trap working. Team Rocket then falls into the traps themselves, haha, classic comedy. Then there's an odd transition scene where Psyduck just walks on the stage, says, and then walks off. In the next scene, Delia and Oak arrive at a rundown building for the Pokemon Expert Lecture, where Delia expresses how she's not as close to her son as she once was. Oak reassures her that nothing stays the same forever, and her feelings are a part of children growing up, which leads into the next song, Everything Changes. Delia and Oak sing this song as 2 dancers perform a contemporary dance number. All of a sudden, several Team Rocket grunts surround Delia and Oak, and Giovanni reveals that the lecture was all a lie. It was a trick to lure Professor Oak to them. Giovanni is surprised to see Delia and says that they're back together. Delia insists that anything that happened between them is in the past, while Giovanni insists that some things don't have to stay in the past or change. Giovanni orders his grunts to take Delia and Oak to his offstage helicopter, which leads into a reprise of Everything Changes, sung by Giovanni as he says that everything's going to change after his plan succeeds. Back in the forest, Ash, Misty, and Brock are lost in the woods after Brock threw away the map while flirting with a girl. They ask a deaf trainer for directions, but he has to battle Ash first. The trainer sends out his Jigglypuff, who instantly starts singing and puts everyone to sleep. The trainer's Jigglypuff gets upset and starts drawing on everyone's faces in marker, just like in the anime. The trainer leaves his map with the trainers. Misty is the first to wake up and wipes the marker off her and Ash's faces, which leads into the next song, Misty's song. Misty sings about her secret not-so-secret crush on him and her fear of rejection while Pokemon puppets dance on stage with a blacklight effect. Ash and Brock wake up right after Misty ends her song and they continue on their way. Meanwhile, Meowth gets Jessie and James out of their trap after they fell asleep hearing Jigglypuff's song. Meowth complains about their incompetence and failures as a team, which leads into a tango number, the best at being the worst. In this song, Jessie, James, and Meowth sing about their, well, the best at being the worst at their jobs, and how being a failure is something they are successful at. After the song, they continue on their search for Ash's Pikachu. They set off in their Magikarp submarine and catch up to Ash, Misty, and Brock at Cerulean Blue Lagoon, as Ash declares that he will use Pikachu in the battle to earn the Diamond Badge. This leads to the song Pikachu, I Choose You, accompanied by even more Pikachu puppets. As they get caught up in the song, Team Rocket captures Pikachu. By the time Ash realizes that Pikachu has been kidnapped, Team Rocket is nowhere to be found, and that's the end of Act 1. After the intermission, Dexter appears on stage. Dexter is a personified version of Ash's Pokedex, and he explains his role in the show as the first song of Act 2 starts, What Kind of Pokemon Are You? Dexter is accompanied by the Dextettes, a group of dancers in Pokedex-themed costumes. The Dextettes also go into the crowd and ask the audience some interesting questions.
Is your dad a Snorlax or a Ghastly?
As the number concludes, Dexter and the Dextettes exit the stage as Ash, Misty, and Brock enter. Ash is convinced Team Rocket stole his Pikachu and insists that the group should split up to find Pikachu. Misty says that Pikachu could have been frustrated with Ash, similarly to her frustrations with him forgetting to take her out to the movies, and decided to run off. Ash and Brock leave, and Ash sings the ballad titled The Time Has Come, Pikachu's Goodbye. The lights dim on Ash as he leaves with a goodbye. We get another Psyduck stage cross. Honestly, this is camp. This is iconic. Back to Giovanni, Delia, and Oak. Delia and Oak are trapped in large cages and are trying to find a way to escape. After many attempts, they give up. Oak asks Delia what Giovanni meant by them meeting again, which leads Delia to tell a story from her past. Remember when I said, we don't know Ash's father, or do we? This is where this comes to fruition, kind of. When Delia was a kid, she would hang out with a group of kids that caused a lot of trouble. Giovanni was not only the leader of the group, but was also Delia's boyfriend. She says that years later after meeting Ash's father, she left her old life behind, and Giovanni's little group became Team Rocket, the massive criminal organization it is today. While it is never confirmed, Pokemon Live heavily implies and hints towards Giovanni being Ash's father, or at least birth father. As Delia says she's left her old life behind her, Giovanni enters the room, and there's even more weird tension between him and Delia.
Don't hate you, Delia. I have wonderful memories of those early days.
Giovanni reveals his mechanical marvel Mecha Mewtwo with a dramatic entrance and an eerie reprise of You and Me and Pokemon, and states that the machine only needs to learn electric-type moves before it is unstoppable. Jessie and James enter with the absolute bop that is Double Trouble as they brag about capturing Pikachu. As they try to get Pikachu to use electric-type moves, Pikachu's shock sends Jessie and James flying across the room, which also somehow unlocks Delia and Oak's cages. After that, Giovanni orders Jessie and James to kidnap Ash. The next scene ends with a quick reprise of Double Trouble, changing the lyric "We captured Pikachu" with "We're gonna capture Ashy too." Back to Misty and Brock. Misty admits that she was just projecting her feelings and how she's tired of Ash ignoring his friends. Brock teases about her crush on Ash, but Misty retorts about Brock being no different with his constant flirting. Misty brings up Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny, Brock's two biggest crushes, as he breaks into Two Perfect Girls, which is yet another bop It reminds me so much of Cruisin' for a Bruisin' from Teen Beach Movie, but instead of being about being a biker, it's about Brock being monogamous. After Two Perfect Girls, Delia and Oak are in the forest, which leads right into our next song, I've Got a Secret. Delia sings of her regrets of keeping her life, well, secret. Misty sings of her secret feelings towards Ash, and Ash sings about missing Pikachu. After the song, Ash, Misty, and Brock reunite and then run into Oak and Delia. Delia continues to dodge questions about her past as she warns Ash of Giovanni and Mecha Mewtwo. Before they run off, Delia admits to her past, but then Jessie, James, and Meowth join in on their scooters. They demand that Ash comes with them, and Ash complies since he wants to take Giovanni on himself. Jessie and James leave with Ash. As everyone else tries to go after them, they are stopped by Meowth, and Delia questions whether it is right to tell Ash about her past. The light dims except for a single spotlight as Delia sings a second reprise of Everything Changes. Psyduck joins her on stage and comforts her. Psyduck is an icon. They exit. Back at the Team Rocket headquarters, Jessie and James arrive on their scooters with Ash. What happened to the not having wheels in buildings, Oak? I guess in Pokemon that just includes bicycles? Jessie yells, Team Rocket's blasting off again, as they cross off stage on said scooters. See? This is why you don't ride scooters or bikes indoors. Giovanni reveals Mecha Mewtwo to Ash. Ash tells Pikachu to attack it, but now Mecha Mewtwo knows every Pokemon attack. Ash and Giovanni's conflict reaches a peak in song form with You Just Can't Win, along with another dance number from the Team Rocket grunts. Giovanni orders Mecha Mewtwo to attack Pikachu with Hyper Beam when all of a sudden a force field surrounds Ash and Pikachu. Then a familiar voice is heard.
Boy will not be harmed.
Who said that?
I did.
My third favorite Pokemon appears. The real Mewtwo's in this musical. Mewtwo appears and tells Ash that he may not remember him, but he remembers Ash, which is a recall to Pokemon the first movie when Mewtwo erased Ash's memory at the end. With Ash's memories, Mewtwo sends a burst of energy at Mecha Mewtwo with a fast-forward projection montage of happy moments from the Pokemon anime, ending with a still of Delia. Giovanni orders Mecha Mewtwo to attack, but somehow the happy memories made Mecha Mewtwo sentient? The machine rebels against Giovanni, now having an eerie, more robotic version of Delia's voice. This is such odd symbolism, especially for this type of show, but I like it. Mecha Mewtwo grabs Giovanni and says that it has learned the power of love and friendship, but it's also learned something else. The power to self-destruct! Mecha Mewtwo tells Mewtwo to get Ash and Pikachu out of the way. Giovanni yells that Mewtwo has bested him once again, but Mewtwo says he didn't defeat him. Ash did. Just as the self-destruct timer hits 0, Giovanni flees and Mecha Mewtwo is destroyed. Sometime later, Ash wakes up surrounded by his friends, with no recollection of what happened other than him battling Giovanni. Mewtwo erased his memory once again. What is he hiding? Ash apologizes to his mom and says that he loves her no matter what. Ash finds the diamond badge in his pocket, assuming that Giovanni gave it to him. He apologizes to Misty for forgetting her birthday and gives the badge to her. The show ends with a finale number amply titled Finale, which is a mashup of You and Me and Pokemon and My Best Friends. All of the Pokemon puppets are brought back onto the stage, along with a new backdrop of some Pokemon from the, at the time, brand new Johto region. The show ends with a curtain call, and that's the end of Pokemon Live. Before I discuss Pokemon Live more in depth, let's discuss how Pokemon Live for a long time was a lost piece of media. On April 29th, 2016, YouTuber Chad Tronic posted a video titled The Mystery of Pokemon Live, where he discusses how video footage of Pokemon Live is incredibly hard to come by. He mentions how amateur video clips of one of the performances by someone in the audience were uploaded to YouTube in June 2008, but were soon after deleted with no explanation. The production stage manager of the show, Chris Mitchell, has been very outspoken about the mysterious history of Pokemon Live. Mitchell has stated that he has some video footage and several DVDs of the show, which he uploaded to YouTube in 7 parts, which are still on YouTube but now all in 1 part. However, the camera quality isn't that good. When asked if he had better quality videos of Pokemon Live, Chris Mitchell said that those videos were all he had, and revealed that there was supposed to be a home video DVD release of the show that never happened. They filmed a higher quality video of Pokemon Live in the last city they toured in.
Chicago!
with the full intention of selling DVDs to the public. In 2000, on the Pokemon website, it was also teased that Pokemon Live would be released on video soon. When asked more about the home video release of Pokemon Live, Chris Mitchell said, "The footage has been lost in the archives of Pokemon HQ ever since they shot it. I have tried to get a copy of it to no avail." 4 years later, on September 10th, 2020, Chad Tronick posted a follow-up video titled Pokemon Live Mystery Finally Solved. His video shows more evidence that a home video release of Pokemon Live is going to be released, as shown by a part of a VHS special called Pokemon Insider with Andrew Rannells and Dennis Kenny, the actors who played James and Brock in the show. Andrew Rannells does a James Bond parody skit of him sniffing out information on upcoming Pokemon products, including Pokemon Live's home video release, and then Dennis Kenny promotes the home video release.
This is technically not the first return from you two. Many of you were lucky enough to catch Pokemon Live during its US tour last year, and were blown away when Mewtwo made a surprise appearance. Oh, don't worry. If you didn't get a chance to see it live, it's coming to TV and home video later this year.
Oh yeah, also in this video, Dennis Kenny runs into a tree while roller skating. After the initial video in 2016, Chad Tronick created an email account for people to send him any video footage or findings on Pokemon Live, in which he got many emails. Most of these emails were short and for the most part poor quality videos from the show. Someone sent the entire script of the show, but the most noteworthy of these emails was from Chris Mitchell. In the email, Mitchell states that he has been in contact with Norman Grossfield. Mitchell pastes in his email response Norman wrote about Pokemon Live. He said, "I've always regretted not releasing the video for the show. As you'll recall, an important element of the show was the multimedia factor, and I wanted to experiment with some ideas of how to incorporate the footage from the projection scenes with the final cut of the stage show so TV viewers could hopefully experience what the theater goers did. I had some thoughts on how to do it, and I wanted to handle the edit myself. Unfortunately, I was extremely busy during those years, and I was not able to devote the time necessary. On top of that, soon thereafter, the Japanese right holders formed the Pokemon Company to ultimately control all things Pokemon. Eventually, 4Kids' rights to the property expired and there was no longer a business rationale to complete the video. But where are the tapes? There was a master switched feed and ISOS of some of the cameras, as well as a multi-track digital audio master in the original projection screen footage. For years, they were in a tape library at the 4Kids studios. I left in June 2010, and I believe the tapes are still there. 4Kids went bankrupt a few years later, and the assets were sold to Konami and Saban. 4K Media, a subsidiary of Konami, occupies some of the old 4Kids studio space and utilizes it mostly for Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know what happened to the tapes. Despite this, footage of Pokemon Live from the performance at the Dubai Shopping Festival has been posted on YouTube, and it's decent quality. However, since this was for a festival, 90-minute showtime was cut in half and parts of the musical had to be cut out. In 2020, a Spanish version of Pokemon Live resurfaced on YouTube with decent video quality, where all of the characters are wearing plastic masks and more cartoony, toyish costumes. The Spanish version also appears to be dubbed, so the actors are basically lip-syncing the musical, except you don't see their mouths.
To lip sync for your life, we need to see your lips.
Even without finding quality video footage of Pokemon Live, Chad Tronick's search for Pokemon Live ended with many of the props, costumes, puppets, and unsold merchandise used in Pokemon Live being found in an abandoned theater in Canada that I will not disclose the name of due to respect for the property owner, as well as the fact that I don't even know the name of this abandoned theater. However, these findings add even more mystery to Pokemon Live. During its tour, Pokemon Live only had one performance weekend in Canada, at the Viridian Hall in Toronto, meaning that Pokemon Live never performed at the theater where all of the stuff was found. In addition, Chad Tronick mentions how this abandoned theater was too small for a production of Pokemon Live to happen, only seating about 200 to 300 people. This leaves many questions. Why are these props here? If Toronto wasn't the final tour location, why were these props left in Canada? Why weren't they left closer to Chicago, the final tour location? The main possibility is that while this theater was up and running, the props and puppets for Pokemon Live that were unnecessary for overseas performances, most notably the Dubai Shopping Festival, were left in storage at this theater. And the missing puppets in the Dubai performance match up with this. The missing Pokemon puppets were of Alakazam, Goldeen, Golduck, Pidgeot, and Seadra, which were all found in the abandoned theater. To close up this section of the mystery of Pokemon Live, I would like to end on a cautionary tale and with hope. To my viewers, please do not seek out this theater and mess around. Hopefully one day, these props can be restored back to their original state and can be kept in a theater or video game museum or something so that they are not rotting in this theater. I hope that they can find a good location. Now, as a theater techie, I have to talk about the tech aspects of this show. From the set to the puppets to the wigs. Starting with the set, as all of the tour locations were major theaters and arenas with between 3,000 to upwards of 18,000 seats, the set had to be able to use and travel with on tour and be big enough for these large venues. The set mostly consisted of painted backgrounds that were flown in when needed during a scene, notably a black sparkly one for the intro, an outdoors one for any outdoor scenes, and a gray one for any not intro, now outdoor scenes. The various set pieces were able to be moved around as none of the set pieces stayed in their place for the entire show, such as Giovanni's podium during It Will All Be Mine, or the jail cells where Giovanni captured Delia and Professor Oak. These also include Mecha Mewtwo, as it is a set piece in its own right. However, there was one issue with the touring locations. Some of them were unsafe to work in. In his aforementioned memoir and in an interview with Katie Lorazis in 2014, Andrew Reynolds recalls that at the Indianapolis tour location, the Indiana Farmer Coliseum, the actors were performing in an ice hockey arena, and that the ice wasn't covered backstage. As you can imagine, this is completely unsafe for everyone involved. Moving on to sound and lighting design, production designer Michael Hotop and lighting designer David Egress worked on all of the lighting and sound effects to bring the idea of a Pokemon battle to life. Special effects designer Ron Smith was in charge of adding more dramatic elements including smoke, confetti, strobe lights, and indoor pyrotechnics. The sound, lighting, and special effects all worked together to blend all of the elements to create a visual spectacle in the show. However, like the set and tour locations, the lighting had a massive issue. Well, not the design itself. It's something the audience caused. These goddamn things! As a lot of theater shows do, Pokemon Live had a merch table that could be bought by audience members. Among these pieces of merchandise were these light-up baton swords, or, a lightsaber. Seems harmless to the actors, right? Fuck no! These lightsabers were basically just a flashlight attached to a plastic tube with a Pokeball on top of it, and kids could easily unscrew the tube off of the flashlight. With flashlights in hand, kids would shine the lights on stage for the whole show, especially during the scenes with barely any lighting. This, as one can imagine, irritated both the cast and crew. However, the production team wasn't doing anything about it because the flashlights were making them a lot of money. As Ouyang from ATEEZ once said, "That's a monster of capitalism." Now on to probably the most notable tech element in the show, the Pokemon puppets. As mentioned earlier, Yvette Helene was not only the costume designer for Pokemon Live, but also the puppet master, quite literally. Being the puppet designer for The Lion King on Broadway, Helene explains her process of making a puppet design in a YouTube video about the making of Pokemon Live. She states that she starts with a sketched out design, then moves into smaller scale models with one of those drawing jointed figurines as a reference for how the puppet would look next to a human. He then moves into full-scale renderings until it gets enhanced until it becomes the final product. Many of the Pokemon puppets were installed on rolling stands that could hold up to 4 Pokemon. There were 6 stands in total, with 24 Pokemon puppets in total on these stands. Helene's shop did most of the work for the puppets, and the rest was done by other shops that were contacted, such as Eric Winterling and Geppetto Studio. On Helene's website, she states that over 260 outfits and puppets were built for the show. Moving on to the costumes, the majority of the costumes were built for the show, keeping in mind the comfortability of dancing and acting in costume, as well as staying true to the characters' appearances. A major standout in the costume design for the show are the Dex costumes, which were completely designed from scratch. Now for probably my favorite part of the design process in shows like these, the wigs! There were approximately 12 different wig styles for Pokemon Live, including ones for Brock, Misty, Nurse Joy, the Dextettes, and Jessie and James. In the aforementioned YouTube video about the making of Pokemon Live, the wig designer stated that Jessie's wig used a foam cone to create the cartoony R shape of Jessie's hair. All in all, the technical aspects, the good, the bad, and the monsters of capitalism came together to create Pokemon Live. So after opening in one of the most prominent theater venues in America and touring across the United States and one stop in Canada, how did Pokemon Live do? Well, not great. At Radio City Music Hall, it was a massive success, selling out crowds for every single performance. But then the show went on tour, and well, as the show says, due to the lack of selling seats at the arenas Pokemon Live was performing at, Pokemon Live lost a lot of money. Even with selling merchandise and tickets, they were still at a net loss. But why or how did this happen, you may ask? Chances are the main reason for Pokemon Live's tour being a failure were the oversaturation of Pokemon in marketing. The Pokemania of the late 90s had already died down quite a bit in the early 2000s, and there was a lack of press coverage for Pokemon Live itself. With this lack of press was also a lack of reviews, and even the reviews the show got said the show show was mediocre. Most of the reviews were mixed, with a prime example being a review from Michelle Erica Green for The Little Review, stating, "If you have a rudimentary knowledge of Pokemon and an enthusiastic underage companion, you'll find that you're having a good time even as you eye roll towards the projection of Haunter on the ceiling." Along with this, the plan for touring in the UK was cancelled for unforeseen circumstances, which cut the run of the show shorter than intended. However, this wasn't the last the world had seen of Pokemon Live, as proven by the many international versions of the show in Dubai, Portugal, Belgium, and Mexico respectively. Pokemon Live may have been a financial failure, but it filled an entertainment void that the Pokemon phenomenon hadn't filled yet, and it filled the void of theatrics with an artistic, campy spectacle.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
In conclusion, there's a Pokemon musical. I know I normally have longer concluding statements, but not this time. If you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the bell for notifications. Comment down below, what is your favorite musical and your favorite Pokemon? See you all in the next video. Thank you so much!